What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids? Today, we are going to be talking about a new era of journalism, and we have a hometown hero, so to speak, a new age journalist, independent journalist who my wife Emily actually went to high school with.
Yes, true.
And so tell us, who is Andrew Mercado? What your backstory? Give us a little bit and kind of what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Andrew Mercado. I just turned 31 a couple of weeks ago.
Happy birthday!
Thank
Cheers!
you.
I'm a month away too.
Cheers to that.
I'm always the old guy.
31.
Always the old guy. But yeah, I'm 31. Started this 4 years ago when George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis and the subsequent riots and the protests afterwards. But prior to that, I was a U.S. Army veteran. Served for 10 years, active duty for 5 years, and then another 5 or like 4 and some change. So it wasn't completely like complete 10 years, but it was like I'm rounding up.
Rounding,
yeah,
it's close enough.
Yeah, it's close enough to 10 years. But I served active duty. I was stationed in Alaska, deployed with in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. So I had a deployment under my belt. Prior to that, I didn't have a whole lot going on, to be honest. I was just in school, living working traditional Minnesotan life, basically.
Yeah.
You know, you go to school, you get a job, you establish yourself, and that's what you got going on. That's really what I was doing. I was just a regular person. Military helped project me further. I was able to maybe try to find myself a little bit more, not completely though, because after the military, I failed. A little personal story. I am in recovery. Right? I'm a recovering addict from substances, like hard substances, like cocaine. So I worked my way from that, and I had to go to treatment a couple times. I went to VA hospital. I went to Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. So I really, really had to like work on myself after the military because they built me into like a man, you know, I guess. So like able to just like support myself, but then I didn't have social skills afterwards, or like I lost all my friends. I really had to like dig deep and, you know, pick myself back up. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do the programs. Like Minnesota has really good healthcare. We have really, really solid programs that like help with this. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to act like I know everything. And here I am. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's been 5 years. I've been in recovery now, and it's been going absolutely excellent. And then so now 2020 came, and we all had tough times during that year, and that was just a wild time. But prior to that, while I was going through treatment, I was in school to become an addiction counselor, and I wanted to go back to the VA hospital and be a veteran that can counsel veterans.
Yeah.
Because that's a niche that's struggling right now. It's like,
sure.
Like veteran counselors are needed. Like if you're a veteran and you want to become a counselor, you're going to get a job like pretty quickly. So I was going to school for counseling. So I had to take interviewing classes. I had to take kind of like journalism kind of type of classes,
Communication classes.
Yeah, communication classes, because you have to like talk to people. You have to like, you know, get to know who they are, and then relay advice sometimes too. But you don't have to do that in journalism, but you can. But that's how I learned some of the skills about journalism, just interviewing somebody. So then now again, like 2020 happened, George Floyd was killed, riots, and I'm out there with my Facebook page. All I had was all I had was my Facebook. I didn't have any social media. Yeah, Facebook Live. I didn't have TikTok. I had an Instagram page, but not many people were on there.
Right.
I didn't have a YouTube channel. I didn't have any of this stuff. So just my Facebook. And I was actually kind of sent off. We were playing Warzone because Warzone just came out. This is how long ago it was.
Right.
Warzone just came out. We were playing with my friends, and they were like, "Hey, why don't you go and see let's go see what's happening out in Minneapolis right now?" Because George Floyd had just been killed, and there were people gathering at 38th in Chicago, in Minneapolis. So I was like, "Okay, well, I'll go down there," thinking they're gonna go down there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they didn't.
just
They did not
Just
go
you.
down there. I was the only one that went. I show up, and I'm like, "Where are you guys at?" "Oh, we didn't think you were actually gonna go." Like, I'm like, "Well, I'm out here now."
Wow.
Like,
Your
and there's
squad
people,
left you
on
your own.
Yeah, exactly. The squad left me. We were getting W's, and now I'm just out there by myself.
Right.
And I'd never been into like a protest environment before, or any type of thing, or any type of a gathering of people outside of like military shit.
Yeah.
That's quite a baptism, I guess.
Yeah, seriously. So I'm like learning things as I go, really. Like, I mean, I didn't know what to do in that situation, so I was like, my friend was like, "Hey, why don't you go live on Facebook and show us what's happening?" I'm like, Like, hey, how do I do that? I had no idea. Like, I didn't even know the buttons to push or the sequence. And at the time, Facebook Live, like people were just in their car, like smoking and like talking to like two people. So I was like, this is so cringe. Like nobody's gonna watch. Well, I went live, and then things kept happening, and then it kept escalating, and then riots and buildings are on fire, and like tear gas, flashbangs. I'm just streaming it, and 60,000 people were watching, 70,000 people like concurrently at the same time, and then overnight, one night, I gained 68,000 followers. So I was like,
jeez.
Well, I got to do something with this now. Like all these people follow me now, and they're expecting more. This isn't over, so I'm just gonna keep returning to the streets and keep filming, and that's basically what I did. And then after because the riots and the buildings on fire and violence was like a week long, and then after the week had ended, it was just protesting and like people with signs, and they were marching. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna stick with this too, because I just went through a week of like hell. I'm gonna stick with and see what happens with this now, and like. People that are like, oh, they're going to be more riots. Because people were very concerned. Like, are there going to be more riots, or there's going to be more buildings smashed? And I was like, well, even just for them too, I'll give them the peace of mind. Like, these people are out here to just to hold signs and march and chant. So I'm going to show them that that's what they're out here for. Or if they're not, I'm out here anyways, and you could just see that that's what they're not out here for. So it was like a win-win. So that's really just how I got started in my background, military background, recovery background. Went to school to try to become a counselor, but I found myself in journalism now. Yeah. So,
what was your MOS?
88 Mike, motor transport.
Motor transport. Yep. Nice. National Guard veteran.
Nice.
13 Fox Fister. A little bit.
Nice.
Maybe more exciting.
Sounds
Truck, but
he's a Fister.
it's meant to sound that way.
Yeah.
So did you deploy?
Yeah. When I was in the military, we went to Kuwait, and we were pulling equipment that were coming from Iraq, because we went to Camp Beering, which is the northernmost base in Kuwait. We didn't get clearance to go up into Iraq because like Obama was announcing the war was over at the time. It wasn't over. It wasn't
mission accomplished.
The mission accomplished. No,
like mission accomplished. The sequel.
Like as that was announced on CNN that day or whatever, because they play the news in the DFAC and the dining halls while we're deployed, and we're like, there's literally vehicles coming down to us today. Like it's not over.
Yeah.
It's more, I guess we're in the drawdown phase, because we were grabbing equipment and consolidating it in Kuwait, bringing it to the ports. The Marines would grab like the Abrams and the big equipment, and we just left. There was so much equipment that we left from the War on Terror. Yeah. So we were like,
so you're saying it wasn't just the Afghanistan thing?
No, it was also Iraq too.
Yeah.
That people like to forget about.
Right.
But no, that's what we did. We were closing FOBs and COBs down, and then consolidating equipment back into Kuwait, and then bringing it to the ports, or keeping it in, like, there was a base called Camp Arif John, and there's just like 10 football fields worth of equipment there.
Shipping containers.
Shipping containers, or like trucks, all of the Abrams, there's tanks there too, so there's tons there.
So when were you in Kuwait then?
That was 2014. Yeah.
Wow.
2013, July 4th, we deployed. Yeah, we deployed on the 4th of July. And then we got back April of 2015. So hold on. My years are all messed up now. Nope. So I got to Alaska in 2012. We deployed, it was 2013 to 2014. Those were the years we went. It was 9 months, so it wasn't a full year. But we went, and we left in July. We got back in April. So, yep.
I think you're probably a little bit after him, but it's close. I had a buddy, Army Reserve, Army mechanic, who was in Kuwait aroundish that time. So
yeah, does he talk about the overthrow of the Middle Eastern leadership, and like Syria was starting to get crazy at the time?
He does. I mean, and he sat in a garage basically the entire time. So
he was in the maintenance bay.
Yeah. So I haven't heard a ton about his experience there. Otherwise, it was just hot as fuck and
very hot. That's basically what it was for me too. I didn't see combat while I was deployed, so it was just heat. We were still in a deployment environment, so it was like very much Army all the time. Like you're still bound to that. Still bound to that the entire time. So even though we weren't necessarily in a combat environment, we were going close to Iraq, so we had to have Black Hawk helicopters, like especially. any ammo missions or anything that were sensitive items, we did have to have like we had to like wear our stuff and like have things, but it wasn't ever like we're ready for like we're going into combat. No, it was like just in case like something does happen, we had to be ready. So
Gotcha.
But yeah, I was just because you were driving trucks and he was wrenching on trucks. I was like, I wonder if there's any crossover there.
Oh,
at the
there
same
was lots
time.
of crossover because we'd have to sit in the bay while they'd fix our vehicles if we needed. We had to. Like it was like what, even though some places you can like drop your truck off and be like, thanks, mechanic. No, it was like if it's 10 level, you had to sit there with your vehicle and like help them.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah.
So I guess we kind of got why you got into journalism, and to be fair, I don't know. I kind of label this as guerrilla journalism. Is that what you would call what you do?
Or like boots on the ground journalism.
What makes your style of journalism, different from the other styles of journalism out there? What is?
Because I guess I try to bring people to the story instead of like relaying it to them third party. I do that at home while I'm streaming because I can't be everywhere at once. So bigger stories, like I'll at least try to bring up firsthand sources to people, but most of my journalism, I go live. Like there's a live stream happening, so you can't really edit a live stream.
Right.
You can have your signal interfered sometimes, but your goal is to just stream and film like nonstop. So if something happens or, a story comes out of this thing or this event, people are going to get to see it right then and there. So it takes away like the middleman. It takes away somebody that could essentially like lie about what's happening, or at least try to. At least attempt.
So is what you're doing cooler than what J.D. Vance did in the Marines?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have any couches nearby me. So J.D. Vance might have had more time in the better time in the Marine Corps.
I think you're right.
Well, so like, do you? Because I rarely ever watch lives, and so unfortunately, I haven't really caught much of your live stuff. I've went and watched your videos that you post and whatnot. And you don't do a ton of like reporting in your videos, like commentary. Do you do commentary in your lives? Are you reporting on that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
like,
it's a lot different because while I'm streaming, it's like I can't just sit there and be quiet and like pull up articles, and I have to like read and comprehend it and then also relay it back like, okay, this is what I think that this article is saying, because people are listening, but sometimes they might not be able to comprehend it, and that's not a slight at them. It's just natural. It's just natural. Like some people might not get this, and it's like, this is what I think this means. But when I'm reporting in person, I'm just doing like who, what, where, when, why, basically. Like this is where we are. This is the person. It feels like this outside, the weather, just basic like senses stuff. I don't really need to do a whole lot of talking when I'm like in person filming things.
Yeah.
How much interviewing are you doing with the guys around you? Is it a lot of that, or is it not quite as much as you'd like?
It's not as much as I would like to. I'm trying to get better at it because my approach when I first started was just to like kind of be a third party. Like I'm just observing it. I'm not going to get myself involved. Even to the point of like getting in there, like interviewing people. Like I just wanted to like show what was happening in a completely like, I guess, unbiased way, the best way you can. Because it's almost impossible to be completely unbiased unless you're in a situation for the very first time. Like, truly. And that's, I really was. Like I was in a riot. I've never been in a riot, never even been to a protest. So like I was genuinely experiencing something for the first time. So it was really easy to do that and then just film things like things are building on fire, like police car, like thing here. And I'm just like, it's very easy. But then when all that settles down and people want more answers, that's when I have to.
You need to provide substance and context.
I have to actually step into it and interview people and talk to them.
Well, and I know that Emily, because she'd kind of mentioned when that first sort of took off and all that stuff was happening, and she's like, oh my God, my friend I went to high school with is doing this now, and she's talking about it. And I vaguely remember her mentioning something about the fact that after you did start providing some of that context and your own opinion started like leaking into there, you had a little bit of backlash, I think.
Oh yeah, still do to this day.
So can you walk us through that a little bit? Cause
people didn't because a lot of people tuned in to see their own biases being confirmed because they're like, oh, this political group is out doing the violence that we are told that they do all the time. Fuck yeah, they're justifying our hatred. So I was really feeding that. Really, because people were tuning in to watch riots and they were like violence. And I've noticed we'll talk about it soon with Ukraine, but people really like will watch when things are violent and very, very like not the best type of content to really consume for a long period of time. It's not healthy no matter what. And I do it and it's not healthy. So now after the riots had ended after those 7 days, and I was out there for them, I didn't stop filming them. I didn't like, oh, there's something on fire, I can't show that. Like, no, I was like standing there, like I was burning up, like hot, like I could feel the fire on my skin. And they wanted me to like lie about the protests because they wanted like, where's the riots? Like, I know that there's going to be some buildings burning new. I'm like, no, there isn't. Like, that happened there. And it did kind of justify them even further when I went to Kenosha and there were more riots and Kyle Rittenhouse and all that. Like, you know, that was like a whole other thing too. But it's when I was like, guys, there's no riots. Like, they're out with signs right now. There's no marching. They were calling me biased. They were saying, why don't you just shut up and just stream and whatever? Like, but you're trying to categorize what I'm showing you, and I have to like fight that, or like I guess I don't, but like I was. So now I'm like, I've kind of just shed that completely because it was like I told you, it was easy to be unbiased in a very first time experience. Right. And then now I've experienced, I went through a whole week of riots straight. I'm pretty experienced in a riot now, unfortunately. And now I'm pretty experienced in protesting and understanding political activism. So it's like, I can't return myself back to being ignorant or being like that. I can try, but you're not going to get my genuine self anymore. Then I'm going to have to become a character, I guess. Yeah.
So do you feel, kind of building on that? I know with my platform, I feel that I've got a certain obligation to not feed certain propaganda or not push certain narratives at certain times that I think would be unethical or inherently go against where I think, you know, media consumption should be going. And when you made the point that, you know, consuming violence is not healthy, especially real live violence, and especially violence that can help people justify a narrative that could perhaps extend to the continued oppression of other groups of people who are rioting because of that oppression, right? And a lot of those times, you know, Martin Luther King famously said, riot is the voice of the unheard, or something along those lines. I'm probably misquoting, but do you feel that you have some obligation to censor that? Do you feel that it's I don't want to say rage baiting is the right word, but putting that up there because you know that it's going to generate views, it's going to result in followers? Is that irresponsible? Do you feel that you have some responsibility to edit that a little bit in your content?
Yeah, especially when you know your base and you know your viewers. So like it's Facebook especially, because I knew that I had a giant mega audience, and I was being big influencers were sharing my feeds too. So I was just like gaining tons of them. But also I was gaining solid people that were just like trying to figure out what was happening. And also people that would support the protests and whatnot. So I was like, I did have kind of a mixed bag, but I definitely had a ton of people that were tuning in for riots and that. So, I mean, when things are like breaking news and things are like happening now, you can't really censor that no matter what, even if you feel one way or another, because then you're trying to like control narratives. It's like when the dust is settled and when, you know, attention is kind of shifted, or like people are trying to like educate themselves further on it. It's then when you then go seek out the violence and like only show it, like, because it does happen. Like people will smash a window or like do it and you're like, oh, like filming that. And then say you only film that, and then you go, this is what happened at the protest today, you know, instead of filming all of it. So like at the very least, I won't like pick and choose. I will just still film the whole thing, or the whole. Like, that's why my content's so goddamn long. It's like hours. It's hours and hours and hours, because I'm gonna film this whole thing, and if there's instances of violence within it, you know, I can't control that. I'm not the one telling them what to do, but it's choosing to only show that or show the big picture. And I try my very best to just show the big picture. But I know exactly what you mean. Like breaking news will come out and like you could just like drive your entire content towards this this thing. And I guess it really just depends on the niche that you're in, like the type of journalism that you're in. So for me, like not all breaking news stories are good for my platforms. Like people it just won't react to them. Like I won't get it. The algorithm won't even favor me. Like it'd just be kind of wasting energy to it. You know,
I absolutely get that. I have people request content on stuff all the time that It's like
Exactly.
I would love to help
Yeah.
you out, but I can't control my platform's
Yeah.
reach. Or
Right.
like, I mean, I have some influence over that reach, but you know, I have people they have hyper localized issues that are really important to them, and I think that they're really important issues. But I'm like, if I say something that's happening in a specific county in Minnesota right now for the school board, nobody's gonna
Majority-
give.
yeah,
Well,
no-
yeah,
yeah.
and it's not like people should give a shit about it, but it's also not something that, you know, it's a global audience, and you have a global audience, and that's it's definitely, it sucks that you can't platform all the things that you'd like to platform, but it's unfortunately something that you have to do. So I totally get that. Have you done, because obviously you spent a lot of time with the BLM protests and the George Floyd stuff. Have you and you're not afraid to travel for your journalism, and we'll get into that in a minute. But have you done stuff with sort of, I don't want to say the other side of the aisle, but political unrest and violence that conservatives would probably be like, you know, January 6th type stuff.
I actually I would have been there at January 6th if I didn't stay home because I was so tired of it. Like, because it was a year plus of just like a lot of violence and a lot of being like tear gas. I'm just like in Portland, I was just like bleeding on the streets, just like blood coming out because I'm just like inhaling just toxins. And it's like, it's fine. It's like non-lethal, but you're exposed to it for so long. It's going to start messing up nasal cavities. Like, and I did have a nice mask too that would cover my face, and I had it was
Like a respirator type?
the whole thing. After some time because I got tired of it. But I actually during 2020 I covered right wing events too. Like I went to Trump came to Minnesota in 2020 in Mankato. I went there. I went and did that. Went to his rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I went to that. I went. We had planned to go to his rally in Rhode Island or something he had, and then there was a hurricane, so we couldn't go. But I went, and then I also went to all the Minnesota local Stop the Steal, Save Our Children rallies. Like I went to all those, and no, those were not getting the attention at all because I was streaming. Like more people were tuned into my BLM stuff, and so even the people that would politically support the Trump stuff, they weren't watching it. They would rather watch to see what the BLM people were doing. It's just a wild dichotomy that I'm learning. But no, I streamed all of that, and like I was coughed on during COVID. Like I was out there, no shots, no nothing, because they didn't even come out yet. And I'm just not. They're coughing on me, and because I'm a journalism guy, so they don't like the press. Like it's very hostile for press in those Trump spaces, unfortunately. Like, but no, I was at home for January 6th. I was gonna go out there, but then I had seen that people were getting stabbed. Like it was like a day or two prior, because I had the plans to go. And it was the Proud Boys and then Black Bloc Anarchists, which people call Antifa.
Yeah.
They were out there like the Proud Boys are getting stabbed and like flags are getting burned. I'm like, I'm good. Like I'm just gonna stay home. Like I knew like if I was going to DC, I knew something was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because it was bad even prior to January 6th out on the streets. If you're watching the streams of the people out there, it was already violent. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
the night before I saw a bunch of stuff, and it was like basically there could have been rioting.
there
but,
could have been.
Like there was enough law enforcement to keep it pretty civil and separated. But
I do love that so many people who try to, you know, dilute and downplay January 6th are like, oh, it's a protest that got out of hand.
yeah, it's insane.
And it's like, no. This was the lead up was there. Everybody knew the reason that so many journalists were there. The reason that this was so well covered was because it was no secret that this was going to happen in some way, shape, or form. And we didn't know it was going to go as far as it would. But like, I mean, obviously Trump wouldn't have held a rally there at that time on that day within walking distance had, you know, that not been the intention from the start. So it's insane to me. And like obviously you in Minnesota knew that this was something that was going to be happening and had plans
I knew,
to go.
like I didn't know it was going to be what it was, like how the level it went to, but I knew like it was at least going to be a violent environment. And I was tapped out of being like physically in violent environments at the time. That's really all it was. Like I wasn't trying to like hide information because at home I still streamed. Like I streamed the whole day, and it started with streaming C-SPAN. I was just filming the boring because I was like, let's just see what happens today. Because we were watching like you said, you had seen the violence in the streets, so I was like, something probably might happen, but I had no idea. So I'm streaming C-SPAN, reacting to it, watching the votes get counted, and then I literally went outside to go take a smoke break. And I went upstairs because I was living in a 2-floor home with roommates at the time. So I went upstairs to go have a smoke break, and I'm getting messages like they're breaking into the Capitol, and I'm like, what? Like, we're literally watching. Like, what are you're lying? And I'm like seeing texts after texts coming in. I'm like, okay, what the hell is happening? So I get back down to my computer, and my chat's going crazy. Like, they're doing it. I'm like, what's happening? And how I watched January 6th. The whole day it was about a 15-hour stream that I did.
Wow.
And
a long day.
we reacted to the Trump streamers that were there because there were people streaming at the Capitol.
Right.
And so we watched we didn't watch it through CNN, we didn't watch it through MSNBC, we didn't watch it through any mainstream media source.
Watched it through the eyes of the insurrectionists.
From the people that were there doing it. Like I was because I knew them all because I had streamed 2020 and I'd went to Trump events, so I learned who the streamers were because they have their own streamers and their own content creators and influencers. So I immediately was like, fuck the news, we're going right to all of them. And I watched the whole thing. And I had came out with the same conclusion as obviously mainstream news because everybody saw it.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing to hide. So it was just a horrible day. Yeah, I was very upset that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are you happy that you weren't there, or do you wish in retrospect that you had?
It would have helped that's like the balance. It would have helped my platform and my journalism, definitely. I probably would have been catapulted further, but like it probably saves on my mental health and my...
For sure.
I don't know if I would have been able to go where I went recently here to Ukraine if I would have been there because that was just such a bad day.
Right.
And I think a lot of people that I'm going to be honest, a lot of people that streamed and were reporting in 2020, they don't do it anymore. Like right wingers do, like some conservatives do, but a lot of people that were trying to like do the on the ground journalism thing, like me and like one other person are left.
Just got burnt
Just
out.
burning out. It's so much. It really is.
Well, and so I guess that kind of brings me to the question of how do you choose what topic to pursue? Is it mostly what you feel is going to resonate with the algorithm, basically?
Yeah, or like really I see like attention, like when I'm getting messages from people that I know have watched my stuff in the past, but they're coming back like, hey, look, this is happening. And it's usually like a flood of messages happens like in my inbox. And then I'm like, okay, well, this is generating attention. It doesn't even require a lot of people, to be honest. And if it's like 5 to 10 people, that means it's a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Really. Because they're speaking for tens of thousands of people that just aren't messaging me about it. But there's a lot of attention there. So I'll be like, okay, let me check this out. And that's genuinely how it happens. Like, I don't like go into things thinking I'm going to cover this, I'm going to cover that. It's like whatever works. And I try to tap into some other topics here and there, but my journalism is mostly unfortunately focused on conflict, politics, and social justice, I guess, or unrest with that. So that can happen. So that's what my platform is, and I kind of work within it. But I've created sub-platforms now so I can still do other content like gaming, or I want to actually kind of do like travel content in the future and just like stream small. Because like this, I love the way Pine City looks, to be honest, with the flags and everything. It'd be kind of cool to like show that. And people
absolutely. In fact, let's talk about Pine City after, and I can take you around town. We can grab a drink after or something. Cool. But yeah, and there's definitely some stuff we can go on if that's sort of what you're looking to do. But again, you travel a lot for this.
Yeah, I do travel a lot.
Travel a lot for this. Travel stuff would fold very easily into that. But that brings me to another question: is how the fuck is all of this funded? Because like again, we're gonna get into you going. You know, this isn't just traveling around the United States. You go overseas.
Yep.
How
think about how it funding for us, and like we have a pretty low cost sort of just like local type setup here, and we're still like. Yeah, like if we start to see a dip in viewership, like probably it's not worth us for us to spend the money to do it.
Right.
So it started, well, right away when I started in 2020, it was like people were begging to send money to my Venmo, my PayPal, and I literally wasn't accepting. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to get sent money to film on Facebook like in Minneapolis. Like this sounds so weird. Like I live here, you know, it's like my home. I'm not missing Minneapolis wasn't my home, but it's like,
it's Minnesota.
It's Minnesota. Like it's weird. And then my brother actually was on there in my comments, like actually posting my Cash App and stuff. So people then started. So I was able to start with a good amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to then I put it into the equipment I needed first. Like I needed a new phone. I needed a gimbal to hold my phone. I needed just like things like clothing to be out there reporting in. I literally genuinely had nothing. Like I didn't have a cool backpack that could put my equipment in or any of that. So I really just spent it on stuff that I needed. And then now over time, I've learned resources like Buy Me a Coffee, Patreon, and then my YouTube channel is what drives everything. So people will become a member of my channel. It's basically the same thing of like Patreon. They pay $2 a month or something, and then times that by 900 people, and that does add up significantly for what I'm able to
So
do. Do
you have some sort of gatekeep? Do people have to pay to consume
No.
your content,
No,
or
not at
so
all.
they're just doing it
It's
out of?
genuinely, I all my income, because I don't have any sponsors yet. I'm going to be working on that this year, but it's all genuinely based on people that volunteer their donation if they want to. And it's not even donation based. It's like it's subscription based now. People can donate like to my various things, but I don't really even ask for that anymore because I roll it all into my YouTube channel. I have an LLC in Minnesota, so I made sure everything's good tax wise, and I pay taxes on it still and all that. Sometimes it's categorized under charitable donations, but most of it's under income in that tax form, and it's too easy.
So why'd you do an LLC and not a DBA? Considering, I mean, you just went with your name for everything.
Yeah, that's what the governor's office reached out and helped me with it because they were watching my streams too. So they were like, anything you need, like help with your LLC, and that's just the easiest route I went with it for me.
Yeah, your funding operation sounds similar to ours. We generally don't have a ton of like member content. It's pretty much all free.
I don't really do
platforms.
exclusive content either. I have I honestly maybe should and maybe just find something to
It's
do.
just hard.
It's hard too because I want to show everything. I want to show everything
it's
to
so
everyone.
much work just to do the regular content too. Like especially, I mean, you're putting in 15-hour days at times,
sometimes.
And that's a lot of work.
And we put all our effort into everything we do, so it's the equal amount of effort to do a normal free version of something versus trying to make it specifically for members or whatever. So like it's all full effort.
Yeah. So I mean, but there's things too. Like I have a Discord server, and people really like Discord now.
Yeah,
So it's mostly, before it was just weird crypto scam stuff, and mine is just a community for current events and people that want to share news and like memes and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll have it. So if you become a member of my channel, you get a badge next to your name in the chat. People like that. Yeah. And then that badge will transfer to Discord. So when you're commenting in Discord, your membership badge will be there too.
Sure.
Stuff like that. It's very simple. It's nothing like, they're not possessing something real like in real life, but they're still like, they use this every day. Like they're on the chat every day. Right. They're proud of their badge. It's just something that just easy way.
You live in a digital world, right?
It is a digital world, and my work is digital. And to fundraise big trips that we're going to talk about, like I use my Buy Me a Coffee. I'll be like, we should because I fundraise for Ukraine, and I also or previous activism things too, like BLM. I'd go up to Cash App the QR code and just put my camera on it. Like, hey, if you want to donate to this, there's food here. They're literally helping people like here. Yeah. So we fundraise to humanitarian effort, but I'll be like, this is the goal. Like, I think it was like $5,000 for the flights for both there and back, the lodging, any of the incidentals I needed, and food. Like, this was my budget basically for all of it, all of it. And that's where we were able to get to that pretty quickly. Nice. Because I actually had a goal. I'd figured out like how much the flights are, like $3,000 between there and back, and then $2,000 for the lodging that I would need through the country, and then just incidental money payments.
That is insane. So I'm assuming you're still you're monetized on YouTube. You're monetized on. Are you monetized on TikTok now, or?
I don't even know how it works, honestly. Like, I think my one account is that I have somebody working on, but I made sure they get the money for it because I put all the work to it. So,
but that I'm assuming doesn't cover a very large portion of it.
No,
or
like
does
the
it? 'Cause, like,
ads.
streaming doesn't seem to pay that much.
It can if you have enough memberships. Like, that's really what you have to push. Or like for Twitch, it would be the gifted subs.
Yeah.
Like, you can make it work for sure. But the ad revenue, no, is not good enough. Like, I think I made $300 in ad revenue in like 2 months.
Oh wow,
That's not good. That's
No,
not pay
that's-
for anything.
that's not-
That doesn't pay for. It sounds. Like
I mean,
a
I
good
even
number,
I even
but
think
it's
our
not.
YouTube's up to a couple $100 a month now.
Right.
Just
That's
in
not good.
Yeah.
So ads don't, and plus, like with the content that I'm doing, it gets demonetized most times anyways.
Right.
'Cause
They're not going to monetize combat videos, or they're not going to monetize that stuff. So
it's just frustrating as shit because they're still willing to make money on it, like
Oh,
by
yeah.
showing it and
yeah.
whatever. But it's like you're still bringing people to the platform. It's the monetization on social media is one of the biggest frustrations about doing social media, in my opinion. Just we need a union.
yeah,
man. Really, like we need a
that'd be
creators.
just
We
so
need a
creative
creators union.
That would be.
Hey, you guys,
We'd actually be
you
able
guys
to
can
fight for
start it
some.
here.
We'd actually be able to fight for some YouTube changes then with their copyright systems and stuff too.
Well, and they even bring all the creators together.
Yeah.
Like once a year at least.
Yeah,
So, I don't know.
it would be like herding cats, but if we could get enough people on board to do it,
It always is.
Yeah,
it always is.
because
It
it would
could be
be
solid.
it would be huge. Because it's such a pain in the ass on TikTok. Obviously, I get most of my revenue from there. That's where my biggest following is, and like they only pay for you page views, and it's like that should be the thing that I'm compensated the least for, because if I'm bringing people, if I'm followers or direct searches for my videos, I've brought those people to the platform. That should be more valuable than anything else, because that's bringing them to the platform where they may not be coming otherwise.
Absolutely.
And then there's no transparency with it. You know how it is with the payment stuff. There's absolutely no transparency
Yeah,
for
it's
it.
tough. And there was a time too. I picked up a second job. I was working at a gas station actually. Like I'd work at the gas station from like 8 to it was like 1 or 2, and then I'd get off and then I'd go do my stream. I got made fun of for it, but I don't care. I was like, I'm trying to fund my thing. Like I'm gonna do what I got to do. Like this is what I'm doing. So in a gas, I'm sorry, but a gas station job is not that difficult to learn.
Yeah.
I was running the store day 2, literally. I was like managing everything. It was great.
Right.
Absolutely.
Pretty easy job to just pick up.
So you got the funding down,
Yep.
and you got your budget set out. So let's just talk about Ukraine. Like, what was it like for you? What was the plan? How did you? I mean, obviously, we kind of decide. You talked about how you decide based off. That's kind of the major conflict.
And
People
that
ask you to
was
go
going to
there.
lead into this perfectly because I mean, how do you start covering Ukraine then after this?
Right. Like,
how
how
does
the
that
fuck
even
did you end
happen?
up there?
Exactly. So I'm after because this was like 2022 then. So 2021 into 2022, the winter months. It was like the protests had died down completely. BLM was kind of done because they had the Derek Chauvin's trial had finished, Kim Potter's trial had finished, Kyle Rittenhouse's trial had finished. Like all the major like closure events of 2020 were like coming to an end at that point. So I started streaming video games at this point, like heavily, because I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was like, I need a break anyways. I'm streaming video games, and I was playing Madden and Grand Theft Auto 5, and I'm telling you right now, I was having more viewers for that than I was at the tail end of my.
Which to me it still just blows my fucking mind.
So,
like people watch
thousands. I had thousands of viewers.
like watching other people play video games. You
It's a
yourself
huge
could
thing.
be playing,
It's
and
a
I
huge
just
thing.
It's huge.
It's something I've just been so unable to wrap my head around.
It's amazing.
I used to feel the same way, but now sometimes I'll put something up and then I'll like play a game and I'll just listen, or sometimes pay attention to somebody paying, somebody that I like listening to talk and just like think they're fun to hang out with digitally,
Like
right?
You're hanging out with them basically.
Yeah.
Or you're playing a game that they wouldn't normally play, but they want to check it out.
No.
Or they want to get this game, but they don't know if it'll be worth it, so they want to check it out, like a preview, like a free preview, basically, before they spend their money on it. But it blew my mind at the time too, because I'm literally playing Madden football, and I have like 2,000 people watching me right now. Like I'm talking, if I wanted to just take off in a gaming career at that point, I probably could have, and I was probably going to, but I'm doing it. I'm like playing Madden. I'm like in a tournament or something, and I'm like intense. And then my chat is on the 24th of February, 2022. Chat comes in, like viewers that I saw from BLM days, and like reporting they're coming in, like flooding my chat. Like Putin's announcing an invasion of Ukraine. I'm like, well, where's Ukraine? Like, where is that? Like, what does that even mean? I don't even know what that is. And people are just like, you have to check it out. It's on YouTube right now. I'm like, okay,
Here we go.
I was
again.
like, all right, gaming chat. I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go do my news platform thing that I've kind of neglected now for a while, and I'll be back. I did return, but not for a while. But I put the stream down, and this was all the same night, and I pulled up YouTube and Vladimir Putin's speech, and then like videos were coming in. This was when Elon Musk didn't own Twitter, so it was like relevant information. It was like coming in constantly. Yeah. So all I had was Twitter open and YouTube, because in Ukraine they had CCTV cameras up over the whole country. They still do, but they obviously the occupied areas that the Russians are in now, those cameras are destroyed or gone. But in the early days, there were YouTube channels that had CCTV cameras up. So we found all of the important CCTV cameras through linking, and we were listening to the Russian comms, because they didn't have any encryption on their comms, so we were like listening to what they were saying.
Classic.
Yeah, so like it was lit like for weeks. Like we were just watching like that's how it started. Like I just pulled up YouTube, and then viewers came in, because obviously there was a giant interest, because Putin just announced he's invading Ukraine. Right. Algorithm lined up perfect, because it's a breaking news topic. Any breaking news topic is good to like branch into. Yeah. Anything that's happening that's major and has attention on it, you're gonna get people no matter what. So I was like, all right. So I stuck with it. Streamed like this was like I didn't stop actually. I was going 24 hours straight. I didn't stop my stream. I would go to bed. I'd be like, okay, guys, I'll be back in a few hours, and then I'd keep my stream running, my camera on, my chair's there, but I'd be in bed, and I'd keep the live cameras on, and people were able to hear the air raid alarms, and they were able to see the missiles coming in, because Ukraine had the cameras up, and it was live, and so people were like literally watching it. Russians were entering the country. We're like watching them smash cameras, like on the like I'm sitting there like reacting to the feed. I'm like, what is this? Russian's like walking to the camera, and he has like a shovel, and he just starts smashing the camera like on live, like on YouTube. Right. Like this is incredible. This is wild. So that's really just how it started, was reacting to the news that was coming in, relaying it, pulling up maps. Many maps, because people had no idea, like honestly, where Ukraine was, or like where Kyiv is, or where this is, or where that is. So like, honestly, I had to figure it out too. So I found out where all the cities are, and I know where they all are now, and all of the important areas. We just pull it up, no problem. Used open source intelligence, which is huge with this, and solid people that were good at it already and were established at it. I'd find them and just play clips of like combat videos, because people were saying there's no combat videos from Ukraine. We have no idea. There's no war, because the Russians are lying. So I'd be like, here's the videos and here's the stuff. So for the first year, it was just nightly, and I still do it, but nightly reporting on what's happening. And it'd just be hours sometimes. And now it's down to like an hour, 2 hours. And then it became, well, people wanted to help. Like they didn't just want to watch. They wanted to like help Ukraine as best as they can. So then it became, okay, well, let's fundraise for Ukraine. So I'd host YouTube fundraisers, and money would go to different organizations. But then it was like, how much of this money is actually getting to Ukraine? How much is YouTube keeping? You know, we didn't really get a transparency on donations. And it was fine. YouTube is solid with the give, and they're solid with they only allow nonprofits that are legitimate. So it's fine there. But people wanted that extra level of transparency of like seeing their money get to the soldiers.
Right. To be fair, the Heritage Foundation is a nonprofit organization.
Yeah. So, really? Okay. So there you go. So it's give and take. So people wanted to see their money actually get to like where it was going. So we found this organization called NAFO, 69th Sniffing Brigade. Yes, because there's a whole niche on the internet and on Twitter specifically. They're called NAFO, North Atlantic Fella Organization. It's kind of like a meme on NATO, but it's like they all have these cartoon Shiba Inu dogs that they took from the Dogecoin and the Doge meme. Yeah, and all they do is combat Russian misinformation like all day. Or now it's become like MAGA misinformation, or like any dictator basically that's trying to like dupe people. Like they're on there fighting it with memes or whatever. It's an information war, right? So they're fighting against it. So this nonprofit came up with this idea to fundraise for trucks, drones, and medical supplies. And they film it all. And like the trucks leave Estonia, they go and they drive the whole convoy. It's a 30-hour convoy, and they go to Kyiv, and then you watch the soldiers literally get in the truck and then drive off and go to the front line with it. I was like, wow, that's pretty freaking transparent. You see the whole process start to finish. They make content for it too, so people get to watch some stuff and see it. I'm going to start fundraising for this. So we've done 11 campaigns now, probably $300,000 in like a little over a year. Yeah, that's incredible. I actually have some for you guys. Some of our campaigns. This is our Angry Drones patch that we had made. Oh, that's awesome. It's like a play on Angry Birds, but it's with the drones. Here's
wicked.
my MercadoMedia patch we had. So these are some of our campaigns we've done.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you're just selling these? As
No,
part of
well,
the...
no. So on there, so I don't even make these or do these. It's the nonprofit does them, and people can donate to get one of these, and then the money goes towards our campaign.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
it works out. There's our drone team one.
Drone team.
Yeah, and so because the big thing in Ukraine, the big culture around the military.
So is the Go for a Minnesota thing then?
That's
or...
Doesn't sound like it.
It's the there's an angry beaver. There's like a beaver that Russians made upset, and it's like it's internal meme stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a beaver that was displaced in a part of Ukraine, and like that's just like to own the Russians back. That is from our morning show. So when I got to Ukraine the first time, we had a morning show called Good Morning Kyiv, and we interviewed people like 2 weeks straight. Like we'd bring in guests that were experts in any field that were in Ukraine on the ground, and we just talked with them, like having a great just morning dialogue and conversation. So that's where the Good Morning Kyiv comes from.
Nice.
Natural drone killer.
Yeah, natural drone killer. So that's just a few of the patches. Because like
who's this on?
that is the motherland fatherland statue.
Gotcha.
A big symbol of Ukraine. The thing's bigger than the Statue of Liberty.
Oh damn.
Wow.
Yeah, it's massive in Kyiv.
That's
It's
cool.
a giant thing. And they had just recently got the hammer sickle on the shield. They had the Soviet hammer sickle on there, and it was replaced with the trident. So
Nice.
yeah.
So just we do the live here for everybody listening, and one of the comments just popped in and said watched Andrew on day 2 in Minneapolis. So
Wow.
small world.
Super small world. Yeah. So with a combination of reporting on the current events and then fundraising for the NAFO that you're holding, that's how I've kind of gotten connected to Ukraine. And then they were like, "Do you want to come on the convoy?" I was like, "Wait, like go to Ukraine? Like actually?" They're like, "Yeah." So that's my ticket in. I've gone 5 times now. I just got
5 times.
Yeah, I've gone 5
Holy
times
shit.
to Ukraine. I just got back 2 weeks ago. And like I said, we fly to Tallinn, which is in Estonia, which I've never thought I'd be in these countries before. I didn't even know where Estonia was either. Like I didn't know where any of these places were. So we fly to Estonia and Tallinn, and then like I said, we drive from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and into Ukraine. So multiple countries. My passport is completely full now.
Yeah.
Like I might need to ask him, can I get a second passport because I need more pages.
I think you get extension.
I might need an
passport.
extension or something because they're filled with countries of pages now.
That's
and
awesome,
we
though.
hand deliver the trucks and all the supplies that we fundraise to the soldiers. And then through that, I've been able to find further opportunities to get closer to the front lines because in Kyiv, like it's not, the Russians aren't anywhere near Kyiv now. They're being missiled by ballistic missiles, and they're getting hit by Iranian Shahed drones. But the front lines are in the east and in the south of Ukraine now. So they defeated the Russians in 2022. There's a big counteroffensive, pushed the Russians out of Kyiv, out of Chernihiv and Sumy, which is just right around Kyiv, and then Kharkiv Oblast too as well, and Kherson. So they really just kind of pushed the Russians like away from them. So they're nowhere there. But so there's kind of like a relative safety, I guess.
Yeah.
Like you're still hearing the air defense go off
Right.
in the air raid. It's not like safe, but it's like relative
Still
safety.
missiles flying.
Yeah,
in.
you don't have to worry about the Russians occupying the city. Like you're
Right,
you're gonna be okay most of the time. So I was like, I want to kind of see more. Like I got to get further and like report. So we did a convoy last year called Donbass Express, and we delivered trucks further, like to frontline cities, basically. And that was my first experience near the front lines. And then we went even further near Avdiivka, which is now occupied. And we went to an artillery position to hand out drones and supplies to the units. And we were like underneath, we were like in their fighting position, like seeing how they live. And we saw like artillery go off, and it was just like, it was nuts. Like, I'm like in it now. Like this is like surreal.
Right. What kind of equipment are you?
We're in a
wrapping out there?
vest. We're a ballistic vest with plates in, Kevlar helmet, full everything,
Full
PPE.
battle rattle.
Yeah, full PPE with a press staple on. Sometimes you just don't wear it because the Russians don't care. They're like specifically will target people with a press vest on. So like you'll have all your stuff on, but you're not going to identify yourself like that out in the open because the Russians will send an FPV drone at you. But that's really like how it goes. That's how I got out there, was just trying to learn more opportunities to fundraise and help, and it's provided more opportunities for my journalism. And Ukraine knows this too. Like they call it a force multiplier. Like if they get more people to show content of like what's happening, they'll get more fundraising to help, and then the Russians will get defeated. So it's kind of like a symbiotic relationship between crowdfunding, content, and journalism, on the ground reporting, and then ability to defeat the Russians. So because while we are sending Ukraine lots of equipment and lots of stuff, it's not enough to win at all. It's just not. It needs to be more. And a lot of the, like for the 6 months the Republicans held up aid to Ukraine, the majority of the funding was coming from crowdsourcing, like crowdfunding and efforts like those.
That's insane.
That's wild to think of.
Yeah, a country is relying on
Crowdfunding.
crowdsourcing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like fucking GoFundMe
Literally,
for the
it's
war.
literally that.
That's
And
wild.
so I guess that actually leads in pretty well to some of the questions I had about this. Is like, what are your thoughts on how the war is progressing? What the future holds? Obviously, we get a lot of opinions here stateside on the war and what's going to happen, and some people are absolutely convinced that Ukraine will be victorious. Some people are still convinced that Russia is something worth
savior of the people of
yeah.
Ukraine.
Absolutely not.
Right.
No.
So it's very much an attrition right now. It's not good for Ukraine this year whatsoever. I'm just going to be honest. Like the first year was great, counteroffensive, lots of territory liberated. 2023 started well, counteroffensive didn't prove itself, and then we literally gave up on Ukraine for like half a year, 6 months straight. So we're kind of honestly like we're in the valley of despair right now. Like it's not the best of news on the front lines. The Russians are gaining ground in the east slowly. It's literally attrition. It's like meters a day. Like I'm talking like nothing.
World War I style.
But it's a meat grinder. Like it is very, very bad on that note. But however, Ukraine is still like they're dominating the Black Sea, which is the Crimean Peninsula in the south. Russians aren't able to have their warships there at all. They're getting just destroyed.
Which is like kind of crazy to me because I would think that Russia has like a formalized navy, and you would think
they do, but it's
their formalized navy sucks though. I mean, their subs are decent.
Yeah,
but
they now identify as submarines. So they're taking out with Ukraine developed these sea drones because they don't have a navy, which is wild to think.
Right?
Of. And
Yeah,
they're taking out. They're like 25% of the Russian Black Sea fleet.
I mean, to be fair, they're almost landlocked. So
yeah, exactly. They only have that Black Sea, and the Russians have their warships there, so it's like you can't really do much. But those drones, though, they have drone boats too, not just the ones in the sky, but they have water drones that blow up battleships.
So you think that's potentially like the future of warfare? Is like
it's already
kind of being developed?
It's already here. We have drone warfare is already going to be a big factor. Artillery is never going to change. We're always going to need artillery.
Yeah.
And big because artillery is a god of war. But those drones, the FPV drones, the Mavic recon drones that can drop loitering grenades on people,
Right,
or
you got like fast response artillery, basically drones, and then big response artillery is traditional artillery.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an attrition. There are good defensive lines built, and I saw them with my own eyes. Like Ukraine was not a. It was a combination of the 6 months of no aid, and then also Ukraine internally wasn't establishing defensive lines that were like solid that would they could fall back to and then really hold the Russians. Like right now, they're really just fighting with the buildings they have that are destroyed, little entrenchments that they can dig that isn't solid defensive lines at all, and they're really just trying to hold it out. So it's just really not a good period right now, but that's not going to be the case forever. Ukraine's working on a mobilization, so they're going to get more troops out there. We're trying to facilitate artillery from NATO to get into Ukraine so they can actually have consistent artillery. That's yet to be seen. And then Ukraine needs to be able to strike inside of Russian territory. Like it's just common sense to me. The Russians are entering Ukraine from those bases, and Ukraine is not able to destroy those bases because the West is like, we don't want to escalate. And
They're not being distracted.
But it's
what more are you going to escalate?
What more are you
to
going to escalate? What are they going to full scale invade? Like what are they going to do? Like it's wild. So until some of those decisions are made, like again,
well, it sounds like some of the NATO countries are now giving Ukraine the green light to use their weaponry to strike inside Russian borders.
They were given the green light, but it was very limited to just like certain amount of kilometers on the other side of Kharkiv because
we're in America, by the way. You can go back to units of measurement we understand.
Oh shoot! See, the thing is, I can't.
Wow.
No, it was wild. Freedom measurements.
That's a little cold, but
What the fuck is a kilometer?
How many bald eagles is that?
It's wild though. It's because when I'm in Ukraine, I can't translate it back to miles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm here, I can.
and
It's
miles and
wild.
kilometers don't translate the best when you start talking hundreds and thousands.
Shoot.
Well,
Okay.
and
Just
armor.
giving you a
I
hard
know.
time.
Not very far. They weren't able to target very far
And it's weird
into.
because military targeting is kilometer
It is,
based.
and that's
It's-
the other
it's
reason,
not
too.
imperial based. So
It's been a very confusing life for me.
yeah.
Like even while we were in grade school, they tried to teach us both for a little bit. Like in third grade, they tried to teach us both imperial and metric, and they like gave up on it. I was like, so now I still do have those teachings in my head still. And then the military didn't help because, like you said, it goes to the. But so it's not very far. It's not far enough into the Russian border to actually hit the bases. Like they need to be able to have to be able to target like further, and we have not allowed them to do so. We just tried to stop the incursion into Kharkiv because the Russians had pushed back and had retaken ground that Ukraine liberated in 2022. So, and Ukraine's still working on that. It's like going back and forth. It's gone better for Ukraine lately, but until decisions are made for Ukraine to have victory and stronger, we just need stronger decisions. And I feel like, I know you had mentioned beforehand, like I'm not totally knowledgeable on like Israel, Gaza, but I feel like if the geopolitical handlings were reversed and we had more like Israel, stop it. And like Ukraine, go ahead. Like it's literally backwards how it should be handled. Like we have Ukraine's hands behind their back tied, and like they have to follow all these rules. And Zelensky's got yes, please, permission. Can I please strike a Russian today? Like they have to ask. They have to go through so many channels of approval. And I mean, the other conflict that I'm not knowledgeable on it completely, but like from what we've seen, like covering the current events, they don't seem to have
Just like, could you maybe do a little less
Yeah,
genocide?
like, can you
No,
please
okay,
stop?
it's okay,
Like,
it's perfectly fine. You
like,
can.
It's insane. Like it's night and day. Like the handlings and the wars are completely different. Like I'm not comparing the war.
Oh, yeah.
because Gaza's the size of not even this. Like it doesn't even.
It's the size of Boston or Philadelphia or something.
You know,
yeah.
so
It
it's
makes
like
New Jersey look luxurious.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. So it's it can't compare the warfare. It's the geopolitical handlings of each. I feel are need to be reversed. If like
Well, and if Hamas had nukes or something, it'd
Yeah,
probably
or
be a
some-
little bit different story.
probably.
but like, not that I'm advocating for that by any means, but like, that's always been kind of our holdback on Russia, and then obviously the fact that the GOP for some reason went from being the party that was anti-Russia to being the party that can't shove Putin's dick far enough down their throat, and I don't.
It's because Russia shed the communism thing. They've gone fascist capitalist now. So
Yeah,
and- but-
authoritarian,
But,
big
but they
time.
play. So what they do is they'll play because there is like an extreme left, as I found. Like there's actually like we call them tankies more so.
Yeah,
and
I've
they
heard that
are
term.
like they're pretty fried too, but they're on the far left. And Russia will play like old timey communism stuff to them, like, hey, we're the workers, we're the workers' country, and all this, and they're not. But they can play to a bigger base with MAGA and Trump supporters because they're fascist now. Like
Right.
Putin is fascist. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not a communist whatsoever at all.
Right.
anymore.
No, and they haven't been for.
And they
a
haven't
long
been for a
time.
significant time. So
I mean, they were never truly communist at any point. Like, I mean,
they had their
The
they had
closest
a
that
period
a
of time.
superpower's ever been,
Yeah,
certainly.
it's a nuclear superpower
Right.
at least.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
not pure communism. But
So I guess for our benefit and for our viewers' benefit, as somebody who's been focused on this since day one, how would you summarize the conflict as a whole? Like, what in your eyes, and especially seeing it from Ukraine's eyes, like why is there a war? Why is it still continuing? And is there an end that you can see in sight, or like what does that look like? Good or bad?
So the first one, the war began because Putin wants to make the Soviet Union great again. Like he wants to. He's invaded. Like since I was born in '93, but '92 he invaded Chechnya. In 2008 he invaded Georgia. He has land in Moldova that's called Transnistria already occupied. They have the can't think of the name, the Kaliningrad. They own part of that, which is like right kind of between Lithuania and Poland. There's like a little gap that isn't owned by Russia, but it's called the Suwalki Gap in Poland, and Kaliningrad's right there. So Russia's already kind of shown through history that they're trying, or Vladimir Putin's Russia has shown that they only have interest in imperialism and like trying to bring back their Soviet.
Right, they've been land grabbing.
Yeah,
for a
they've
couple
been land
decades.
grabbing, and they're trying to reunify the Soviet Union through force. And these countries like Ukraine and Estonia, for example, they have their independence.
Right, they fought for independence,
and they've had it since '91. So in 2014. The president of Ukraine was Viktor Yanukovych, and he was a very, very, very pro-Russian president. Like given all of it's like a mafia there. Like it was very bad, very corrupt. And actually, his house is now a museum. It's called the Museum of Corruption, and it's a giant it's like Mar-a-Lago basically.
That's exactly what I was about to say. I was like, Mar-a-Lago in the future is going to be the house of corruption.
Mar-a-Lago on steroids, basically. It's giant. It's a giant park and everything. Like, this guy was a lunatic, but you go there and you can pay, and it goes back to the country, and you can go and see it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Yanukovych was president. Ukraine was going to join the European Union in 2014. Putin was like, "Nope, you're not doing that." And Yanukovych was like, "Okay." And then the people were like, "What the fuck?" Like, they were like, the European Union is not like a perfect thing, but it's an organization where it provides more economic opportunity, cultural opportunity. Like you get more money.
Isn't it more economic than military?
Oh yeah, well yeah, it's an economic organization. NATO is the military organization. EU is specifically for Europe, right? It's not like they're already in the United Nations, for example, which is like the global.
Oh yeah,
thing. But European Union though, you have to apply to it, and Ukraine they had a lot to work on. Like you gotta make sure your roads are paved. You have to have parking. Like you have to there's a lot of just like things you don't even think of that you have to have.
The infrastructure
has to be updated because there's a lot of Soviet infrastructure and it needs to be modern. So regardless, but there was an ascension there, and Ukraine was going to be a part of the European Union, or at least ascend to it. And Yanukovych stripped that. And there was a giant protest and riots in Euromaidan.
Right, in Kiev. Yeah. I remember those riots. I got a picture on my screensaver on my computer, pops up every once in a while. I got of the half of the square that is non-riot, and then half of the square just full, just disasters, all blacked
like a war
out.
Zone. Yeah, and it's going back there is so historical too at that spot. So they were in Kyiv. They're fighting the Berkut, which is Yanukovych's police, and they shot and killed protesters, students. So it was making world news. And I was deployed at the time, like I said, in 2014. So I had no idea what was even happening.
Plus for 20-year-old,
and plus
20-year-old idiots don't really
20-year-old idiots focused on the Middle East. I had no idea what was happening in Europe. So.
To be fair, most of us had no idea what was happening in the Middle East at the time. Even the people who were there,
still have no idea.
Exactly.
So. Protesters win. They get there. Yanukovych flees, but they're still not in the European Union because of just like all that. And obviously, we're still trying to get Ukraine into the European Union, or people are still trying to advocate for it. So in 2014, also Putin puts troops in Donbass and also annexes Crimea, which is like illegal. But Obama was not strong on Ukraine at all. Biden was actually trying to be as vice president. Like he was much stronger on it. He was like, we should do more, and Obama was just not. He was just focused on the war on terror. Understandably, we had a lot going on. But they had taken territory. They took Donbass, and then from 2014 to 2022, there was a war. Like even through Trump's presidency, like Ukraine was out there. Russians were gaining some ground here and there, and Russia was playing cry bully victim, saying, "Oh, they were bombing the Donbass." We call it doming the Bonbass for 8 years. It's like it's a meme because it's such a joke. Because Russia had their troops out there, they were occupying Donbass. They would purposely put like their S-300 systems or their Buk anti-air systems next to apartment buildings, so that way they'd fire at Ukraine soldiers, and then Ukraine would have to return fire and hit the things, and they'd purposely have them next to buildings and stuff. So
I had heard like a lot of that early conflict was centered around like the agricultural aspect of like the Donbass region, and that Ukraine had like shut off like water that would like normally had flown in there, but because Russia had invaded, they were like, well, we're not going to give you reason to like grow crops down there.
Yeah, it's a big land. Well, it's a lot of things too. Obviously, the reunification of the Soviet Union, but Ukraine has rich land, like really good. Like the country is like Iowa, Minnesota, and
breadbasket of the Soviet Union. Like
that's why I actually like Ukraine, because it's very similar to like where we live. It's very Midwestern, but Ukrainian. It's literally almost the same.
Do they have Bush out there?
They like hard liquor out there.
But
Yeah, so it's a land. The land is rich, very rich in resources, and that's why Donbass is big on that. And then Ukraine cut off the water because like they occupied the city, and then like it's just they're trying to fight back because they signed the Minsk agreement and they couldn't fight anymore. They're like, okay, Ukraine already came to the table and it was like, okay, we're not going to try to liberate the territory you've taken from us. We'll stop fighting, and that was already done. Like they already had the Minsk agreements, and then obviously 2022 comes up and Putin invades again. So all of Vladimir Putin and Russia's narratives of, oh, it's a NATO proxy war and it's this and that. If it was a NATO proxy war, like if it actually was like NATO fighting Russia, this would have been done in 2022. No. We would have just like completely destroyed them because of their tactics, their equipment they brought in, the fact that we're not even giving Ukraine any of our updated equipment. They're using 30, 40-year-old equipment from Vietnam, from early war on terror days, like not Humvees that aren't even up armored, like or M113s, which are horrible.
Right.
In 2023, we gave them the good main battle tanks and the good infantry fighting vehicles, but it's never to scale. It's like batches. Right. It's like, here's a little bit.
You can do like a small operation, but you can't fight an invasion.
It's not enough to outfit their whole military.
And so I guess I personally sort of bought into the, like, this is sort of a NATO proxy war in that, like, I had heard that NATO was discussing bringing Ukraine into NATO, and that has one of the reasons why Putin was like, no, I don't want NATO right adjacent to me.
I mean, but that was sort of bullshit because Ukraine gave up their nukes
in 94.
In 94.
The Budapest Memorandum.
And agreed not to join NATO specifically for like an assurance from Russia, from Putin that there would be no invasion, there would be no annexations.
Agreements to, so it's actually backwards. Ukraine, even prior to 2022, like 70% of the country had no interest in joining NATO because of they were like, we just don't want to, because they know Russia. They are aware of the Ruski Mir. They're aware of how just it's bad. So they didn't even want to poke the bear, I guess. The thing was, so like the country didn't even want to.
Okay.
Russia invaded anyways. You know what I mean? Because again, he's trying to make the Soviet Union great again. He's trying to make Russia this global super, and they are, but like, they've kind of embarrassed themselves lately. Like they're militarily incapable. Like they're only really capable of fighting. I mean,
Ukraine wasn't a military powerhouse.
No, and it
was not a pure
destroying them.
It was not a pure army when they invaded, and the fact that Russia can't. I mean, Russia should have steamrolled Ukraine, especially with the initial support that Ukraine had, and the fact that. And that's on Russia's border. It's not like they
have to travel far.
There's zero logistics in this. Like they had all the time in the world to set up to prepare for this.
And they were too.
And we can't harass their bases, so they still have.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they can't attack their base. And Ukraine didn't have any of the stuff that we've given them since. They had to fight with what they had at first. Right. Like they had to defend Kyiv and they had to defend all of this with their own shit. And then after Ukraine proved themselves. Like then we gave them the HIMARS system, and then we gave them the M113s and the Strikers, and then we started sending more and more and more as Ukraine's proven themselves.
It was definitely a parallel, I feel like, to early Israel when Israel went and was like, okay, we're not that obviously Ukraine's fighting for territory they already had, and Israel was fighting to steal other people's land. But we like stood off to the side. We're like, we're gonna see how this turns out and like see where it goes from here, and then we'll see if we're gonna like give support. And that's what it felt like happened with Ukraine.
That's exactly what happened.
Ukraine's like, okay, we can fight this on our own, but it would be really nice to not have to do that.
That's basically what it is. Like we're gonna fight on our own no matter what, but it would be great if we could defeat these Russians with better weapons, and like we'll do it. Like we don't, and that's why Zelensky's famous. I don't need a ride. I need bullets. Because we were like, Zelensky, just pull you out of there, man. It's not looking good. But no, like I want to stay here. I'm gonna fight. And that's how the Ukrainian mindset is. Like we'll do it. We don't want your American soldiers to come and die here for us. Like, if they're going to volunteer and do it, then it's fine. But you're not going to be sent here from the DOD. Like, you're going to Ukraine. Like, no, we'll fight. Just give us the equipment and the ammunition to do
the hardware.
Yeah, and like that's really all. That's like the energy of the whole war. Really, is like we want to do it. It's not a NATO thing. It's not NATO's war. And that's after Russia invaded Ukraine. Now, of course, they want to be a part of NATO and have that alliance. And that's the process. Is NATO or even the European Union, they don't just go, this country is going to be a part of us now. They have to go through an application process that is so long and grueling. And
it's like how long it took UK to leave, much less
exactly
join.
Right.
And part of,
they're not in the European Union anymore now.
Oh.
Yep. Brexit.
Brexit. Baby?
Oh, I thought you were talking about. I thought you were talking about
No,
NATO.
not NATO.
though.
Not NATO.
I was like, I'm pretty sure they're still in NATO.
They're still
NATO.
there. They're still there.
Pretty.
yeah.
But oh, I just totally lost my train of thought.
So I guess that's you bring up a good point. Is like they want to take this on themselves. My kind of follow up question is, how do you see what's the perfect way that this ends, other than just like we win? Like, do you think that the people of Ukraine want more support than just weapons at this point? Like, I mean, I just looked it up, and there's like 500,000 civilian casualties. Like, at what point is it like, okay, we've tried to fight this long enough, and we've been fighting this for so many, too many years without NATO support, and clearly, if it's not a NATO proxy war, it sure looks like one right now. Like, step in and help us out. Actually,
yeah, that's the energy that I'm hearing, and that's even when I was in Ukraine. Like, they at least want maybe a Baltic state that's in NATO, like Estonia, which has given a bunch of their GDP to go into Western Ukraine, which there's like Lviv, which is the furthest western city next to Poland. Beautiful city, giant city, but there's minimal, like, Russians will send drones there and a missile there every few months, but it's like, you could probably have maybe a NATO shoot that thing down, like air defense. Like, they don't have to, and then they're not fighting Russians exactly, but they're protecting civilians.
right?
So there's like a push to have Western countries and Western Ukraine still away from the front lines, so that way more Ukrainian soldiers can like go and fight at the front lines.
Okay.
It's really going to be on the will of Ukraine, to be honest, like, because they're not going to, it's their home. Like, no one's going to tell them to stop fighting for their own land and their own territory. It'd be like tell an American to do that. Fuck no.
Right. No. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, and a war attrition is just not something that affects Ukraine either. I mean, Russia has suffered massive losses, not only just in personnel but in equipment. I mean, they're dusting out Soviet era shit too to bring back up to the front lines. How long do you think Russia is willing to keep that up? And I mean, Putin's obviously willing to keep this up to the end because he's a deranged lunatic at this point. But there's still a bunch of oligarchs who really, in theory, sort of pull the strings in Russia as well, and they humor Putin to an extent. But when does that stop? When does somebody, give Putin the accident that he likes to give everybody else because they're not willing to lose any more money?
Right. So a lot of people, like even Ukrainians, when I'm talking to them on the ground, this is probably going to go for another 2 to 5 years.
Wow.
Like the war. So
That's
2 to
nuts.
5. Yeah, 2 to 5 years. The election coming up is going to be a big factor. It's going to matter.
Election for
America, U.S. So the U.S. election coming up is going to be a big deal on it. But in terms of like the level of warfare right now, 2 to 5 years at least.
If the situation stays as it is.
Yeah, the situation stays as it is. Because as I was a little earlier, I was mentioning Russia's gaining ground in eastern Ukraine, but there are solid defensive lines that if and when Ukraine is like, we're going to fall back now, which I do think they should do, to be honest. Like, I really think they should cede some of those villages and territory so they can fall back into those defensive positions and then hit Russia, like, as like, oh, where are the Ukrainians? Like, oh, I guess this is our village now. Nope. Artillery, like, destroyed. And I think that's really what needs to happen, because otherwise it's just going to be a drawn, like, it's bad, like meat grinder, mostly for the Russians, because they're losing like 1,400 soldiers a day. Like, it's bad, but also too for Ukraine as well, because then when they try to go and liberate territory, then they are the ones putting themselves in the Russian trenches, and they're getting kind of, it can be a meat grinder for Ukraine too as well, when they're trying to liberate their territory, because you're on an offensive, you're going to take tons of losses. But it's going to stay the same right now until those big decisions are made. Like, until Ukraine can strike into Russian territory and destroy those bases, until internally Ukraine can mobilize soldiers, because they still haven't gotten them out there yet. They're still being trained. And then until NATO gives Ukraine the steady amount of artillery that they need, or actually have somebody that's like, we're going to help Ukraine to win.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that does. It's hopium, really. It's a war, so it's like you can only really hope for the best, and things happen. Tomorrow something could be different, because it's a war. It's very unpredictable. But if we can get those strong, that's why I said if it's hope. It's really hope. It's really a lot of hope. If we can get those strong leaders in positions to make decisions that are going to like help Ukraine win, because that's the choice now. Ukraine is on an irreversible path to NATO, as they will say.
Yeah, right.
So if it's irreversible, then we need to help Ukraine win.
If Ukraine did join NATO, would we still treat their current conflict like we would treat it if Russia attacked, say, Poland? Would we, because NATO is an attack on one is an attack on all,
Yep.
and you respond
Article
as if you were attacked. Obviously, if they were to join NATO, they are currently being attacked. Would that draw us into a boots on the ground conflict with Russia at that point?
In theory, yes. The problem is, well, I guess, and Putin knows this, is Ukraine can't join NATO while they're at war. So it's like kind of like a catch-22.
Yeah.
So even while Ukraine's on this irreversible path to NATO, they will never be in NATO while this war is happening. So Putin's just going to try to keep a war going to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO anyways, even through all the narratives and everything. He's going to try to just keep conflict happening in Ukraine to just prevent that from taking place, because they can't join NATO until there's no war. So it's a kind of a catch-22 on that note.
And realistically, how long until, because Ukraine at this point has, in theory, an unending supply of hardware and support coming from around the world. Russia doesn't. And so at what point, and Ukraine also has, I know that the U.S. military and other NATO countries are helping with training and that sort of thing, and some of that background stuff, where obviously Russia is sending people who have no idea how to even operate the equipment that they're putting them into the front line because they're running out of people. Like, when does it become a point where Russia just can't support that attrition anymore, can't support operating on such a poorly trained and poorly equipped force?
That's the thing. That's why people will say 2 to 5 years, because Russia has so many people, and the meat grinder is so real. You got to think of it in simple terms. It can be kind of a graphic thing to think of, but Russia has so many humans, and Ukraine has limited ammo, right? Because they're not getting unlimited ammo. It's very limited. And there's a position, and Russians are told, go take that position. They will send bodies at that. They're dying.
I mean,
but
that's always been the Russian war strategy.
It's never changed.
I mean, it's been
it's
that
the
World
same
War I,
exact thing.
World War II, just like
meat grinder.
Send people till they run out of bullets.
Yep. And then when the bullets are out, then the people that are in the back that weren't killed then get to take the position. But same with their artillery, is Russia is not running low on artillery right now. They have plenty of that. Right. They have plenty of the new glide bombs that they've been using. That then they'll just scorch earth the city. Like they'll be like, we're gonna just city gone, and then we'll take it. Well, then we'll take it. Like that's the way they fight, and that's unfortunately working in a lot of Ukraine because of just that level of warfare. And Ukraine's not sending their soldiers. They don't have enough soldiers to send at a meat grinder or to try to fight with the same tactics as Russia, because they just don't have the amount of resources to it. And the skill of the soldiers, like, it doesn't. I guess it will matter, and here, like when they're trying to take real positions, but because they're taking small villages and small areas right now, and it's so slow. Like I'm talking like maybe a half of a block a week, but they'll still get that half block, and the next week they'll get the rest of it, and then it just like after a month, it's like, oh, they're 3 blocks down now they've gained some ground, but it's so slow and so such an attrition, but. The drone warfare has taken over so much too, where Russians are using drones, and they've learned from Ukraine's ability to, because Ukraine had a stronger drone military and capabilities and understanding of the drones, and through the war itself, Russia has learned how to fight with drones better now, and so they're catching up with Ukraine, and they have the ability to fund their own drones through their government, whereas Ukraine's trying the best they can, but they still need crowdfunding, because a lot of units, like territorial defense units or smaller units, aren't getting the attention like the Azov does, or like Third Assault, or other big units. They're just not getting the attention that other units do. Whereas Russia is just like a big machine, and they're going to fuel this machine and send old equipment to get blown up and just keep doing it, because that will prevent Ukraine from joining NATO, because of they can't join while they're at war. So they'll just keep sending bullshit and keep sending people in, nonstop.
Do you think if Russia was successful here, their next step would be Poland?
Yeah, I mean, regardless, they're not physically fighting our countries, but they're destabilizing it through informational warfare, through elections, through cyber attacks. So it's already happening. It's just we're not seeing it on a battlefield right now.
But do you think that they would take that step towards Poland on the battlefield?
They would. I think what they would do is try to find a way to appeal to pro-Russian in Poland, like they have in,
and try to make like an internal revolution,
just like they did
happen.
with Ukraine. So it's the same strategy. It's just they'd the poor people in whatever place in Northeast in the pass that I had mentioned in Kaliningrad. All those the Russian speakers in Poland are being attacked every day. It's a victimhood mentality, right? We see it in the United States with MAGA rhetoric. It's just with Russians on a larger scale. So they'll try to likely destabilize Poland or wherever, or Estonia. I feel like it'd be in the Baltic states first before Poland. And then try to, through governmental control, through elections, and through installing people in Western countries to, maybe those speakers need help over there. I don't know. Like that's how they were able to go into Ukraine. It would be harder with NATO protection.
And that was my question, because like
it'd be a lot harder. We do have that, but I'm just the only concern I have is even with an Article 5 protection in general against physical warfare, they're still destabilizing our countries through informational warfare and rhetoric.
And we've proven very slow to respond to stuff that we likely should have. Obviously, with their invasion of Georgia.
We did like nothing really to that.
Well, we did nothing. I mean, most people don't even know about it here in the States.
Right.
And then annexing Crimea, I think, was really a nail in the coffin. We've allowed Russia to really push the buttons and see how much they can get away with. And until our somewhat limited support for Ukraine, we really have just let them do whatever they want to do with no consequences, aside from some sanctions that have been unfortunately not nearly as effective as I think we were hoping.
Yeah, they've been able to get around most of them.
Well, and the EU relies on Russia for
Germany and other countries rely on Russian oil and gas.
Right.
So it's like, and Russia knows this. They're aware of it. That's why they work to try to put people in position, or make deals, or put people in positions, or destabilize our countries in the back end, so they can work on their former Soviet countries physically with warfare and fight. It's called the hybrid warfare that Russia fights. It's what it's referred to.
And Russia is really good at that aspect of it. Unfortunately, I mean they've proven to be really bad at the physical warfare, which is reassuring. Yeah. Obviously, we've been building our military for what Russia claimed they had, and obviously
they're not the Call of Duty Modern Warfare Russia that we thought they were.
And I think that this has shown that on a toe-to-toe battlefield situation, they have really no hope of contending with us, or probably any NATO military force that's well supplied and well trained.
And a perfect example too is Vladimir Putin going to North Korea and getting help from Kim Jong-un. Like that's so sad. Like he goes to the Hermit King, but it's Russia's getting North Korean artillery shells. They don't always work. They just got some North Korean missile system that looks just like dog. It just looks like dog shit. But unfortunately, like, because Ukraine's running low on some of their own resources, these dog shit equipment is going to have some effect on the battlefield, and that's what Russia bets on. We don't need to have a total victory, but victory here and there that will then maybe lead to a larger one that they're trying to do.
Well, and unfortunately too, just big picture, this is allowing North Korea and Russia to field some of their systems to quality test, and learn and change, which I really thought was what Russia was doing in Syria all of these years, and I was really surprised to see how bad they actually were at warfare after, blowing shit up in the Middle East alongside us for, the past decade or better, a couple decades, I guess.
Well, their projection is laughable compared to
and they use PMCs to fight, mostly like the Wagner group, for example, which was just like destroyed in Mali like 3 days ago. But they fought most of their 2022 into 2023 fighting winter in Bakhmut. The Wagner group was their leading force there, and then with Prigozhin as the head of it, and then we saw how much the Russian machine of their military can break down when he had a mutiny in Russia and was like killing Russian. He was destroying helicopters and soldiers. He didn't give because it's a mafia state there. Yeah. It's not. It's crime. It's nothing good. It's whoever the strong man is, and then they had to get Lukashenko from Belarus, who's another type of I call him Soviet Grimace, but because he looks like the Grimace, or like Grimace Hitler, because he's got that stupid Hitler mustache. And he had to go and do a deal with Prigozhin, and then Prigozhin gets killed anyways because he did what he did. But it showed the breakdown right there. Like Prigozhin, unfortunately, I mean, I don't support the Wagner Group at all.
No,
but like
no.
he was like our glimpse into the weakness of the Russian military as a whole, and he was like providing memes and content for tons of us that were like, "Told you, Russian military is not what we thought they were." But unfortunately, it's like two things can be true: their tactics and their military aren't what they thought they were. But it's good enough right now because we're just kind of like supporting Ukraine with old equipment. Like, but if we were actually fighting Russia, it would be a different story.
It'd be over tomorrow. I mean, if we rolled in and we could keep nukes out of it, which is obviously
nukes out of it.
which is. But I mean, it's not a gamble I'd want to play my hand on. But I do think that we would have the defensive capabilities to keep the nukes on their side of the line.
It's like new knowledge attained, right? That's why I think they're also trying to be more careful with it. And I hate the appeasement theory, the appeasement policies, but I do understand a little bit of trying not to escalate completely, and I think also understanding that we would beat them militarily, like in a conventional war. Then Russia, like the fear is because we would destroy them so bad, Russia would just push the button and start a nuclear war. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just haven't quite pushed the right buttons, Russia.
Yeah.
If they push a few more buttons, then it's like, well, maybe it's invasion and restructuring of Russia. Like,
the ruble's worth nothing. The economy is in the hole, but they have so much oil money.
Yeah, they got the natural resources.
Yeah, natural resources. So like they can fund their war as long as he wants to be honest. But it really would be the pressure from outside resources. Like if we can continue to attack or with our sanctions,
disrupt their supply chain.
Frozen funds go to Ukraine. There's like billions, 200 some billion in frozen Russian assets that we can like, here you go, Ukraine. Here's money for to help.
Well, and Russian private businesses are just like gone.
Yeah,
like
any private enterprise,
that did
freedom of it's becoming a complete
closed economy,
hellhole, hermit giant country. Like no freedom of speech, freedom of press,
Iron
anything.
Curtains going back up.
Yeah, but it's isolating them bad. But it's really like how long can that go for? And I don't think anybody really is going to be able to predict that. You'd have to probably ask experts that have been to Russia and have lived there for a period of time and understand it a little bit more because it's a completely different like reality there.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure. Well, do you have anything on the horizon that you're looking forward to? Or?
Yeah, before we do that, I have some things I'd like to show you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of get like a show and tell segment for your podcast. So this is a Russian MRE box. Okay. This is how they feed themselves if they're lucky, if they get one.
If they actually get food.
Yep, if they actually get the food.
So yeah, we're for everybody listening audio only here. It's like a cereal box from the 50s is what it looks like. And it has things written in Russian. I'm not sure if this is nutritional facts.
Probably. It's probably caloric.
There's nothing nutritional.
There's nothing nutritional.
There's nothing nutritional.
The box is probably more nutritional than the food.
There's not too much nutritional about Army MREs either. So,
but I don't know. That's a pretty cool souvenir though to bring
back. Here's
a
Ukrainian one in a bag.
Oh, so Ukrainians are coming in a plastic bag.
And these two we did on my morning show, Good Morning Kyiv, the patch. Yep. We taste tested these, so that's why I have them.
Sure.
Side by side. I did a taste test of a Russian MRE and a taste test of a Ukrainian one.
And so tell us what.
It's the Russia. It's the it's puke. Like there's puke in this box. Usually, like it's disgusting. I don't even know how they're able to eat any of it. Damn. It smells horrible.
Yeah.
And the American MREs are obviously not.
No,
but like I would rather eat that all day long.
Yeah. So what about the Ukraine?
Way good. Super good. There's
better than the American.
There's more goodies in there, like in terms of like snacky food that Americans like. Because like usually, if an MRE, if I get one, if it's bad, I'm only gonna eat the snacks. I'm not gonna eat the. I'm not gonna eat the course.
You're lucky to get like one little bag of Twizzlers or like M&Ms. Like that's it.
So I'm just gonna pull these as I see them. So while we were in the south of Ukraine, we met with a regional commander and one of his guys who's also older too. They're super old. We gave them aid. We gave them medical supplies, and we're just really well connected to them. And this dude pulls out and you got to realize Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union,
Right.
Okay, so it's
Mhm.
okay. Like they're not everybody in the Soviet Union was evil or like had this
Yeah, of
mindset. So he fought. He was on a nuclear submarine in the Soviet Union. Like,
Oh, wow.
and that's what his job was. And now he fights for Ukraine. It's a pretty
Right.
cool story. And like we gave him aid, and the guy literally pulls out his Soviet diving uniform
Wow.
from like when he was in the Soviet Union, and it was like, here you go.
He just gives
Just
it to you?
gives it to me. Yeah. So
Dang.
here's that.
Dude.
Because that's how like it's a level of appreciation that I've never even seen before from
That
like
is
from
insane.
people. Yeah.
Like if I had something like this, I'd be not
Exactly.
be giving it away.
I'm like, I'm gonna show my grandkids that or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's his Soviet diving uniform.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Hold it up for the camera
Right. But
And that's common when you meet with Ukrainians. They usually have gifts or something to give.
Sure.
That is so cool.
Yeah, no, that is pretty cool.
And then, well, I have these out here.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of like a civil war.
Yeah, literally. These are real. Now, those are my fundraising patches.
Yeah.
This one is a 36 Marine Brigade patch. You guys can keep that or keep it for the show. So,
Ukraine Marine
Yep, that's
Brigades?
Ukrainian Marine patch.
Okay.
And this is the National Guard patch, one of them.
Sure. That's
So
cool.
those are worn. Those are real ones. The
Wow.
NAFO ones aren't. Those are just my fundraiser
Yeah,
fun ones.
yeah,
But those ones are real unit patches from
Oh,
Ukraine.
that's legit.
So you guys can keep those. These ones are the ones I've kept.
Yeah, looks like you got, I mean, 5 trips, I would expect.
Yeah. I'm gonna pull this one off to share a story on that one really quick. Let me see here. Make sure. So my project kind of. I want to hold that one up. So here's like all the patches I've been given so far, and there's tons. Medical patches. You got Third Assault on there. I got a couple of info patches.
there a little bit.
Yeah. And they just one of the things that are given. It's really really cool. I bring like an American flag patch. I'll go and buy one from the PX or from Amazon, and then I'll be given like a patch from like they're literally like those patches. They were wearing them and they pulled it off and like here you go.
Sure.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So pretty cool.
Yeah, swapping
Some
patches,
patches.
kind of like swapping jerseys at the end of the game.
Yeah,
a
like
little bit.
exactly. Same mindset in in the United States too. Like when I served, everyone wanted their combat patch. Like, look at my patch, I got it finally.
Yeah.
But in Ukraine, like they love the morale patches and everything.
Sure.
So now I have a restricted section patch that I can't ever like be proud of it or be like, look at this cool. But it's just a share with the story.
Yeah.
So while I was in Ukraine, I think this was my 3rd trip, and we were able to go to the rifle range with the Ukrainian military, and we were one of the stations that we went to was he had a long gun and it was a sniper, and he was sitting there and like this is how much they were like appreciative of our help. They're like, we're gonna show you how we train. I was like, cool, and I'm shooting his long gun and he nudges me and I'm like, what? And he holds this up. And he goes like this, and he's like this, and he hands it to me. And this is a Wagner Group patch, which you were talking about, Russian PMC.
Yeah.
And he got this from
Right.
a Wagner that he had taken out in combat. So
Well, that is a
Wow.
it's like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like it's a
And
restricted
then he gives it
section
to you.
patch. He
Right.
gave it to me. He's like, here you go. I'm like, I can't be like, look at my patch, a Wagner patch, because
Right.
it's obviously they're evil and dog shit humans, but it's one of those. It's just
But
like
it came off a dead
but
one.
it came off
so,
a dead one, and so
So you can be like that. Like
I just play it upside down.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is from a Wagner PMC that
That's
sniper had
pretty
taken
crazy.
out.
Yeah, I have some World War II memorabilia from my uncle who fought.
Yeah.
I mean, he landed in Normandy. He fought all the way
Yeah.
through the Battle of the Bulge and everything.
Mhm.
And so I've got some
Nazi
Nazi stuff that he pulled off
yeah,
of, and it's like, but it's cool. Like I love
history.
showing because it's cool and it's like it came off a dead Nazi.
Yeah.
So
It's
that makes that makes a
historical.
good Nazi memorabilia.
It's a good historical remembrance too. And now a positive patch, and I just want to give a shout out to Pete Fouché from Project Constantine, who just recently lost his life. He was a foreign fighter. He was well connected to my channel and other channels on YouTube because he just recently like found his voice on the internet because he's just he's a guy that's just involved physically. Like he doesn't know how to work many of the technologies or do any of that. So he was finally shown how to do it, and he was like making appearances on our YouTube channels, and was like really well connected. So this is his unit patch, and then here is actually his unit gave us a flag.
Wow.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, from the 67th Brigade. So this is one of them, which is really cool. Really awesome.
yeah.
Ukrainian flag.
Yeah, so for everybody listening audio only, it's a Ukrainian flag and everything. They've got a bunch of signatures on there. from everybody who was
Right,
there.
think your
so.
yearbook will way cooler.
Yeah.
And then we have an even cooler one we just went to, and the big thing of Ukraine is their flag. Like they love giving it and gifting it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the most recent one that I was given. It's another Ukrainian flag, but it was given to me from a soldier. His name is Kemik, and he's a drone operator. He's like, Ukraine has their army of drones that they consider, and he's like a very famous FPV drone pilot.
Nice. Oh, that is cool. So this flag has a shield on the center, a coat of arms, I guess it would be, or what would that be called?
Yep.
With lion head in the middle, and then a little drone logo on the bottom, army of drones, and then a couple patches in the top corners there.
Probably unit
Their brigade patches.
brigade
Okay.
unit. Yep.
And then the backside has
It's him.
It looks pretty high speed with that.
himself with a sword,
With
like
a
a straight up samurai sword.
It looks
on
like
there.
the vibrating sword from like the Mandalorian, basically.
Yeah, so he's full battle rattle, like full modern combat armor, but a samurai sword.
Yeah.
And is that a helmet in his hand
Yep.
too? Why is he carrying
Yeah.
another?
I think it's a Russian helmet.
Oh, Russian
Russian
helmet.
helmet
So
in
it's
his
it's like
hand,
it's like the
got it.
modern version of scalping,
Yeah,
basically.
So,
Yeah.
And then it says, "Thanks, Renegades," and that's my YouTube channel that helps fundraise. So
That is
really-
so awesome.
Yeah, really cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
That
And
is
then
so
the,
cool.
The flag is just like a cool, just like a texture too. It's
Right,
like
yeah.
shiny and
Yeah.
very metallic-y looking.
And I want to remind anybody, if you are listening audio only and you want to see any of this stuff, this is all posted on YouTube in video format, so you can check that out.
Now you have a reason for people to come watch the video. For me.
Absolutely.
All right, a couple more things
Oh
here.
wow.
This is from a piece of a Russian drone. This is from a Sahed drone.
Oh jeez.
Well, it's actually Iranian, but the Russians are using them. You can see a bullet hole in it.
Sure. Yeah.
It was destroyed off of it, and I was given that from a soldier that we gave a truck to. He's like, "Here." They like know that we like souvenirs apparently, so they're like, "You give us a truck, we'll give you some souvenirs."
Yeah.
from-
Well,
Man,
that's a pretty fair trade.
This is like
Here's some of
paper,
the-
damn near.
Here's some of them.
Well, it's
the,
supposed to be
Yeah,
this
less.
is some of the
Yeah.
the components to the engine or how it propels itself.
Oh, it's part of
the
an electric
drone.
motor.
Yeah,
I can see
yeah.
that.
And they're very cheap. If you felt this, you see how
Yeah.
cheap it is.
I mean, I suppose it makes sense, but
Yeah.
you want it to be. It's disposable. It ain't coming back. So
So this is a piece of Ka-52 helicopter. And when the war had started, the full scale, Russians had tried to take an airfield called Hostomel in Kyiv. And one of my very good friends, Operator Starsky, helped defend Hostomel. And so when we had went there and he had gave a tour to us about it, like what it looks like and everything, he's like, "You want something off the ground?" I was like, "There's destroyed Russian equipment." He's like, "There's destroyed Russian equipment there." I'm like, "Sure." I found just something I could put in my pocket. So there's a piece of Russian attack helicopter,
Nice.
Ka-52.
X helicopter
Yeah,
part.
almost, yeah, no more helicopter. Oh. don't ruin your computer. with a Russian helicopter.
I'm breaking your broken stuff.
Yeah, literally. It's funny. It's like I'm holding on to literally broken shit.
Yeah.
And then this is just a plaque that we were given from the 77th Brigade. Like they really do care
Wow.
about
Yeah.
our support. Like,
Yeah, that is
It's
cool.
awesome. It just goes to show like how genuinely appreciative of this stuff they are,
Literally.
and goes back to show all the people who are like they're corrupt and the money's not getting to the ground. These are people on the ground. Like you have hand delivered this stuff to people who are
fighting.
sending rounds at Russians,
Yeah.
and this is how much they appreciate it. Obviously, they're getting the material, and don't believe Uncle Bob at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, don't believe your uncle and aunt. It's cool Polaroid. There's a journalist that was doing Polaroid shots, which is a cool thing. I guess.
It is
Yeah,
cool.
Polaroid.
It's
Kinda like retro.
very
vintage.
Yeah, it's vintage.
very
looking.
Vietnam-y feel.
Yeah. So he took a Polaroid of me handing off equipment
Gulf
to
War
the
photo
soldiers.
kind of looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. So little show and tell for you guys.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you
Some
for bringing all
gifts.
that
I figured I'd bring
stuff.
some
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, thanks to the patches.
Of
Super
course.
cool.
Yeah.
Super
And it-
awesome.
I just wanted to show, like, I had to learn it too, that they're so like you said, they're very appreciative of our. It's not like they're like they're not like help us, hand us.
Right.
It's like no, they're like to the maximum degree possible are appreciative of our support. Like all, no matter who it is or where it's coming from. So just even me, like I'm a Minnesotan, has a YouTube channel, and here they are,
Right.
like giving me.
Like their
plaques.
literal uniform they
Or
wore
their
on a submarine
Soviet
and shit.
submarine
Yeah.
uniform. You know, I can't even think of it. 'cause
Right.
I don't know. Like you'd have to put yourself in their shoes and be like, if a foreign, like, it would be wild to think about as an American, because who's invading us?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
nobody's invading us, regardless.
We can't have that kind of perspective. Because
Exactly.
it's something
It's something
we
we
genuinely can't.
Right. The best we can do is Red Dawn and Red Dawn the remake.
Right. It'd be like America being invaded, and you'd have to, so many different rules would have to matter for this metaphor, because it just doesn't make sense. But say we get invaded and we just can't defend ourselves, and like a Canadian comes and he's like, and you were like, oh, thank you, and we give them like, memorabilia from like our heirlooms or something, or I don't know. It would just be, it's just a mindset you'd have to try to tap into, and it's just so cool, I guess, every time.
Oh, that's insane.
No doubt.
All right. Well, do you have, what are your plans for the future going forward?
Plans for the future, cover Ukraine still. I don't know if I'm going to go back for a while. This last trip to Ukraine was rough. Like, we had 2 to 4 hours of power a day. Like, the war, like, I have probably some newly added trauma from the recent trip, because like artillery was coming in on the city. Ballistic missile came in and destroyed a children's cancer ward in Kyiv.
Jesus.
Like, it's just like a lot. Like, it's a lot of trauma that I just don't want to really like subject myself to as best as I can.
Right.
But so I don't know if I'm going to go back to Ukraine for a while, maybe at least not until next year, until after the election. But we're locking into the election and U.S. politics, domestic issues, like kind of how I started, basically.
It's going to determine a lot here.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, because it'll determine Ukraine, or like what's happening, like who's the president, because
Trump is not going to support them whatsoever.
And everyone knows it. Ukrainians know it. Like, I'm on the train home from Kyiv to Poland, and I'm with 2 babushkas, and they don't speak English. But I have the Google Translate app, and I can talk into it, and they can read it, and they can talk into it, and I can read it, and it's beautiful. And they, for like an hour, were asking me, and it's like it's 2 babushkas, and they're like, it's like they're questioning me, kind of like, what are you doing here? Why are you in Ukraine? Like, do you support Ukraine? Do you believe in victory? And I'm answering them all, and I'm like, what do you feel for the election coming up? And I was like, well, this is before Biden dropped out. And I was like, well, we need Biden to be stronger on Ukraine and other geopolitical happenings in the world. I feel like he's not the strongest on this. He's pretty good internally and domestically in the U.S., but he needs to make stronger decisions here for a victory. And they're like, yeah, but we just can't have Trump. Like, we can't. Like, it'll be the end, basically, like of Ukraine trying to fight for itself with Trump's presidency.
Which is funny, because he was like, oh, if I was president, it never would have happened.
Literally,
But
it's really just,
I'm not going to support them as a president.
Right.
When
So-
he says it wouldn't have happened, it would have been Putin being able to take land without Ukraine fighting back.
Right.
That's really what he means by that. Like, it's really just, oh, we don't want fighting, but Putin can still take land if he wants. Like, just don't get anyone involved and don't even talk about it, basically, which is weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, and at this point, I feel like Trump would hand Putin the keys to the White House, and
If he could, maybe.
yeah, I mean, it feels that way, certainly. I've never seen anybody so soft on Putin on Russia in general in the United States.
And like you said earlier, the Republicans were so strong on Russia, like through history. But I think it was that real, like, they could fight communism with it too back then, when in the 80s and with Reagan. And now, because that identity of communism is kind of gone in Russia, they don't have that thing to fight against. So they're like, Russia,
which is so fucked too, because
I
like
know.
Gorbachev, like Russia in the 80s was not bad.
Yeah.
Like, Gorbachev was actually a really solid leader for Russia. He was willing to work towards peace, and
you were bringing them closer to the West too. Like, they got McDonald's, they got Nike was there, and they got a bunch of Western products.
And Reagan's like, I'm not a cowboy, but I played one on TV. And he's like, this town ain't big enough for the both of us, bullshit. And he's like,
Literally.
lasers. Let's do space lasers. That's how we're gonna fix this.
I watched Star Wars one time, and now I need that shit.
It's like straight up Dr. Evil shit, and it's just crazy. And now we've got, appeasement for one of the most authoritarian people who has ever run Russia, which is just insane. He makes Stalin look like a puppy dog in a lot of ways. And
the famine's probably going to come next for Russians. Like, if their post offices are developing drones now, or their bakeries, like, they don't have eggs. Like, they don't have basic needs in their grocery stores because the money's going to drones and military funding. We'll see how long it lasts. Really, like, I don't think you'd have to talk to a Russian expert, but even they're like, this is bad. Yeah, this is a really bad situation.
Well, in the future, if you want to do a joint show or do a joint, like, debate watch or whatever,
That'd be fun.
Definitely hit us up, and we'd love to have to discuss that.
Apparently, our Venn diagram is a lot closer to a circle than I thought, because I'm looking at the comments here, and the Jesus Christ, is that Mercado? And like
dang.
everybody, like, oh, Andrew, like a ton of people in the comments. So
Nice.
you're definitely not unknown in this circle.
Cool,
so,
cool. Everything would work out perfectly.
Yeah.
Super.
So let's do some crossover stuff in the future. That'd be great.
For sure, buddy. I'd love
Well,
to.
thank you. Oh, I did want to ask you, is there any other media sources that you recommend for people to follow, people that like, can
Yeah,
help
Dylan Burns on YouTube and Twitter. He does kind of what I do, but better. He's in Ukraine still right now. That's really kind of who I want to stick with, Ukraine, because there's been a lot of sources, people that have burned me over the past year or two, and like they're kind of more commercialized, and I get it. Like they just kind of focus on ad revenue and not really push like. There's like we were talking earlier when you had man, I don't want to drag this out so much longer and go to another narrative, but like you had mentioned earlier, like when do you start talking about the bad, or like when do you try to hide violence or whatever? But a lot of people right now are trying to hide the Russian gains in the East because it's bad news. It's like I said, we're in the valley of despair, and I was honest about it. And a lot of people don't want to report that. They want to make sure it's only positive all the time.
Feels good.
Yeah, they want the good vibes, and that's another form of misinformation as well.
Absolutely.
And it can actually hurt Ukraine because then people can get
complacent.
everything's fine, like nothing's wrong. They're winning. They're beating the Russians, and then they'll get news of like Russia's gained another city, and they're like, but we thought, I don't trust anything now from the Ukraine media or whatever. So it's like. Yeah. Can't really, even though they're positive, strong, they support Ukraine as much as possible, but they're giving misinformation with not telling really the truth. And I feel like Dylan is a solid source I can immediately recommend as like another like journalist that's on the ground in Ukraine covering the conflict.
All right. And then anything for yourself that you want to plug while you got the opportunity here?
Yeah, MercadoMedia on YouTube. Subscribe, which on YouTube is free. It sounds like you have to pay when you have to subscribe.
Follow.
Follow on YouTube or Facebook. You have individual social media. You can look me up, Andrew Mercado, on any social media platforms. But my main content is MercadoMedia on YouTube.
All right. Well, sounds great. We appreciate the hell out of you taking the time to come up here and talk with us and bringing all your show and tell stuff.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation, I think. And
we always really enjoy the geopolitical discussions. We're not experts by any means, so
love talking about it and hearing somebody who's on the ground.
Right. Oh, exactly.
Has been awesome. I love to see the crossover of our fan base here, and everything is great. So I'm happy that Emily brought it up and put us in contact.
Shout out Emily.
And so thank you so much for coming up here. We appreciate the hell out of it and taking so much of your time. This is going to be damn near a 2-hour episode.
That's all good. That's my prime content time.
You're like, that's rookie numbers, son.
Whenever I'm on a podcast and it's like an hour, I'm like, I had so much more to say. It's fine though.
We always say it's going to be an hour. It's never, ever an hour.
Even
we've
just
given
the
up
two of
on
us,
it. So please follow him if you want to support him or his causes. Do that. Obviously, he's putting in the groundwork that very few of us are doing, putting in the legwork, and that's just absolutely awesome. Absolutely deserves your support. Subscribe, Venmo, Cash App, anything.
You just YouTube. Come to the YouTube channel and you can learn from there. That's the best way to support.
So do that stuff. And with our stuff, if you ever want to buy merch, offjowagon.com has Let Them Eat Toast merch, has Off to Wagon merch. Obviously, you can subscribe to our stuff as well, our Patreon we got going, and you can just send us money too for that kind of stuff. We appreciate it. Like I said, it does cost us money to do this, so anything
support
helps.
Independent media.
Yep, absolutely. So we appreciate you guys. We love y'all, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for being here.
That's right. Appreciate it.
Peace.